I'm going to tell you about a piece of equipment for your camera bag that you've probably never considered. Hey, it's Tim. I'm a nighttime landscape artist living on the east coast of Massachusetts on Cape Cod. Chances are when you go out to do a photography shoot, you're not always thinking about communication. You might be by yourself, in which case you don't really need to communicate with anybody unless there's an emergency. But I tend to shoot with groups of people in distant locations in the middle of nowhere at night. And about 5 years ago or so, I started thinking about different ways to stay in touch with people around me in that environment. A lot of times I'm outside and not in the line of sight of another photographer. I know they're around. I could maybe hear them. I could hear someone cough or sneeze, or you have a general sense of where they are, but I don't really know where they are, and especially in situations where we don't have cell phone coverage. So I got to thinking, I really should introduce some sort of communication option. And in this case, it was these Motorola radios. I'm going to not really talk about the model specifically, but just the concept and why I think it might be a good idea for you to consider having some radio equipment with you when you go out and shoot in environments like this. When you're out by yourself, you want to make sure that you have the ability to communicate with the outside world. If you go somewhere where you are going to lose cell coverage, it's nice to tell someone, hey, I'm going into here. I'm planning on leaving at this time. If I'm not back by this time, you should send help. But when you're out with a group of people, things get a little bit more complex. For example, you might be all shooting the same building, and maybe you want to coordinate who's going to do the lighting when for the shots that they are taking. You'd hate to start something and find out that somebody was just finishing up a 3-minute shot and your flash or your strobe light or whatever blew the shot for them. Or you're doing a shot and somebody comes walking around a corner with a flashlight. Well, with these radios, you can say, hey, just want to let you guys know I'm setting up a shot over here. I'm about to open the exposure. It's going to be 2 minutes. Is everybody good to go? Am I interfering with anybody? That kind of stuff. That's where it's really helpful. Where else it is super helpful is, and this really happens quite a bit when you're out in the middle of the night in the desert with people. Somebody hears a sound, some sort of motorized sound. An ATV's coming, a motorcycle's coming. Somebody saw headlights coming down the road we just came from, and there shouldn't be anybody coming. This is a great way to communicate to everybody that there's something that we should be on the lookout for or something we should be concerned about. Even if you're in an area with cellular coverage, think about how that would have to go. You'd have to get your phone out. You'd have to text message everybody in your group potentially, hope that they're getting the notification, that their notifications are turned on, and that if they are on and they hear it, that they're actually going to look at it. And then they may respond, they may not. When you use a radio, everybody gets the same message at the same time, assuming it's turned on, which is very simple to ensure. When everybody walks away, you turn the radios on. That's it. So that in and of itself is very valuable. And there have been times that we've used it for that purpose. I was in, I think it's called Thurman, out in West Virginia. We were shooting the old railroad town, and we were shooting on an active rail line. One of us was on one end of the town. 2 of us were on the other end of the town. And there's this rail line that comes through. And sure enough, one of us heard a train coming. We can say, hey guys, there's a train coming. And now they know right away. That also meant I didn't have to run down the railroad tracks a quarter of a mile to tell someone, and vice versa if it was coming in another direction. So that's where it's helpful. Now, you might walk into a Walmart or a hiking store and see these tiny radios. They're called FRS, which is called Family Radio Service. And in a pinch, those are okay. They're not going to quite get the range as something like this, which is more of a commercial grade unit. I'll tell you a little bit more about this in a second. But you walk into Walmart and you get the blister packs of the 2 Cobra radios, and it'll say 49-mile distance. Forget about that. That's if you're sitting on top of the Empire State Building and the other person is sitting on the next tallest building in direct line of sight. You know, you're not going to get that amazing coverage. We're talking about a half a mile maybe, and that's line of sight, which means I can see you, and there's nothing between you and I. Again, in a pinch, they work okay. They're really meant for families to stay in touch on, around campsites, or, you're going to send Timmy over to the car to get the cooler, that kind of stuff. For what we do, we're in and out of buildings. We're sometimes across terrain. We might even be driving and decide that we want to communicate that way because you don't want to text and drive. You might not want to make a phone call and drive. So that works pretty well too. Regarding these radios, so if you're someone who's an amateur radio operator, I'm an amateur radio operator or a ham. I love scanners and all that. There's a bunch of radios out there that require licensing. FCC wants you to be licensed because they want to know who's talking on what so they can keep the whole spectrum nice and clean and organized. So you can't just go on eBay and just buy some radios that talk to each other and be legally transmitting. The FRS ones that you see in Walmart and so on that I talked about, yes, those are so low power that the FCC doesn't care. They just don't care. You're not going to interfere with anybody. They don't get a lot of good range and so on. The business band radios, which are the ones you see like security guards with at the hospital or at the factory, those ones normally require licensing. However, there's a little bit of a loophole, and that comes in the form of what's called a MURS radio, MURS. That is just a fancy acronym for telling you that there are 5 frequencies in the VHF band, so 5 channels that are reserved for businesses but do not require a license to have. So if you have a radio that is type accepted, which means it was legally built to transmit on those frequencies, you can pick one of those up and, rock a fancy looking business band radio. And the nice thing is that because so many companies are switching to the more digital equipment, a lot of these Motorola's that have been really popular for the last 10 or 15 years are showing up on eBay in groups for sale. So I've been able to pick up several of these and just kind of hand them out to my friends for us to use as we've needed them. And they're super durable. They come with drop-in chargers. I mean, they're like the real deal. And back in the day, if you bought these brand new, you'd be looking at $300 or $400 a unit, where now you might be able to get one for as low as $40. On average, I see them for around 70, but that's still a pretty good deal. So all I'm saying is this: besides all your camera equipment and your snacks and your drink and whatever emergency supplies you might bring, if you're somebody who likes to go out and do this, sort of adventure shooting with friends, consider having some kind of communication equipment with you, in the form of radio, just a simple 2-way radio. They're kind of fun, No, we don't have names for ourselves like Ghost Rider or anything like that, but it does help out a ton for safety and for logistics. And when we're all done at the end of the night, we can say, okay, everybody, we're heading out. Or if one of us decides to leave and we don't know where everybody else is, we don't have to go find everybody. We can just say, I'm leaving. And everybody knows that you're gone. So when they're ready to leave, they're not looking for you. Communications is a pretty important thing. And yeah, I'm a little biased because, like I said, I'm into radios and all that. And it's nice to be able to integrate that stuff into another hobby. But I have given these radios to friends and they've quickly figured out, wow, this helps a ton. Just as a side note, the workshop that I taught out in Nelson, Nevada, in October of 2021, I gave all of the attendees radios because we were all in an area where not everybody got cell phone service, but also because if somebody needed help, they could just radio me and I'd be right there, because we were in kind of a large area spread out in this ghost town. Or if somebody just finished up shooting a really popular spot that other people wanted to photograph, they could say, hey, everybody, it's so-and-so. I just finished shooting the gas station. There's no one over here now. So it's free. And that helped out. And then, people were leaving at different times and they would say, hey, Tim, I'm heading out for the night. I'll see you tomorrow. So the use case on these is pretty extensive. You might go through your whole life and this doesn't matter to you, or not find a need for it, but I'm just throwing it out there because every so often I'll see a video on YouTube where somebody says something about something they do, and I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. And it kind of opens up my mind to something. And this is one of those things that I'm hoping will open up your mind if you find yourself in similar situations. So what do you think? Do you have any questions I can answer for you? Leave them in the comments. Are you already using radios? Do you need help finding some? Drop me a note. Let me know. I'm happy to help. I'm a radio nut. I love radio equipment. I have all sorts of police scanners and ham radio stuff and shortwave equipment and all that. And that's my other hobby besides my love for photography, and being able to kind of overlap them is a real blast for me. So, stay in touch. And if it's with a radio, let me know. If we ever get within 2 miles of each other, we can talk. And happy shooting. Thanks for watching.